All right, welcome to day 5. So far, everything we've talked about has been focused inside your system. But TRIZ has this kind of uncomfortable assumption. And it's this: if the solution was really inside the box, someone, probably you, would have found it by now. So today, we're going to deliberately step outside that box. Let's start with this quote, because it nails a feeling I'm sure we've all had. You know, when your team says we've tried everything, what they usually mean is we've tried everything we can think of inside our bubble. When you're really stuck, it's almost always because you're searching for the answer in the very same place the problem lives. You're trapped. Now, there's a technical term for this inside the bubble thinking. It's called psychological inertia. And honestly, it's probably the single biggest killer of innovation. Why? Because it just locks us into repeating the same old approaches and accepting assumptions and constraints that, a lot of the time, aren't even real. And that inertia leads straight into this trap called local optimization. This is where we pour all our time and energy into just tweaking the current system, making these tiny incremental improvements. But we never stop to question the fundamental constraints. We're essentially trying to play the game better instead of asking if we can change the rules of the game itself. So yeah, that's why this idea is so important. If the solution was already inside the box, someone would have found it. The truly inventive, game-changing solution is almost certainly outside of your current view. It has to be. Okay, so how do we actually escape this trap? How do we systematically look outside the box? Because we can't just sit around and wait for some flash of genius, right? We need a map. We need a tool. And in TRIZ, that tool is called the system operator. All right, let's dive into this. It's often called the 9 windows, and it's a really disciplined way to shift your perspective. Think of it as a simple grid that forces you, and I mean forces you, to look at your problem from 9 totally different viewpoints. So here's what it looks like. It's just a simple 3x3 grid, but it maps your problem across 2 really powerful axes. You've got the system level on the vertical axis and time on the horizontal axis. Your problem, the thing you're working on, sits right there in the middle. Okay, let's break down that vertical axis first. In the middle, you have your system. That's the thing itself, the problem you're focused on. But then the grid makes you zoom out to the supersystem. That's the bigger environment it all lives in. And it also makes you zoom in to the subsystem, the individual parts and pieces that make up the system. Then you've got the horizontal axis, time. This is just as critical. It forces you to look back into the past, what existed before this system. And then it forces you to project into the future. What could this thing evolve into? See what it's doing? It's systematically pulling you out of just focusing on the here and now. Let's make this concrete with a quick example, the car. So the car is our system in the present, easy enough. But look what happens when we fill out the grid. The supersystem in the past included things like dirt tracks and horses. The supersystem in the future, well, that's things like smart grids and non-emission zones. All of a sudden, you can see that the problem of the car is way bigger than just the engine and the tires. You start seeing resources and constraints you totally missed before. And that's the whole point. This systematic view reveals resources and leverage that were completely invisible when you were just stuck in that center box. The big takeaway here is that real innovation often comes from changes in the supersystem or the subsystem, not just from another little tweak on the present system. Okay, so now it's time to put this to work. Let's shift perspective and apply the system operator to your own challenge. Here's your exercise for today. First, take that bottleneck action you found on day 4 and put it right in the center box, present system. Then expand out. What's its supersystem? What came before in the past? What might exist in the future? Third, for each box you fill in, I want you to list at least one resource you're not currently using. And finally, you're going to complete this one sentence. The constraint I treated as fixed is actually... The whole point of this isn't just to fill out a diagram. It's to get to that aha moment, that feeling of, wow, I've been trying to fix the wrong thing. Now, before we wrap up, a quick but important point on how you can approach this exercise and all the ones that follow in this course. You've basically got 2 ways you can do this. Option 1, and this is what I recommend for the most direct value, is to work on a real business challenge from your own work. Apply these tools to something that actually matters to you right now. Option 2 is to follow along using the Hoover Dam case study that we've provided with the course materials. It's a great way to practice the techniques in a structured way. Either path works great. So think about this as you do the exercise. By shifting your view of the system, what fundamental trade-off have you just uncovered? Today was all about stepping outside the problem. You've mapped its true boundaries across systems and across time. And in doing that, you've probably started to see the real trade-off you're up against. Tomorrow, we're going to take that trade-off, define it as a sharp contradiction, and then we're going to learn how to break it completely.